Hello, everyone. It is Sunday, and there's Vega joining me in this. It is Sunday, March 7th, 2021, and this is the PoGo Weekly Digest on PoGo Park Politics and Government for People of Color. Thank you for joining us this week. And again, the panel is here with me again. On the West Coast is Beacon, on the East Coast is Vega, and here in the Midwest is Greg. Hello, everyone. How is everyone?
Hello.
Vega's apparently the only.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Vega's the only one speaking. they're gonna take care of everything. How are you? We'll start with Vega. How are you, Vega?
I'm good. It's been a somewhat easy week. I've been mostly just fixing up my finances because I still gotta participate in this capitalistic system, even though if I don't want to. But other than that, it's been a very nice, calm week. And I can't complain.
That's good. Beacon, how are you?
I'm doing well. I had a lovely day. I got a haircut, so I'm very excited about that. Um, I got to see my best friend from a distance out in the open air, which was, I'll take what I can get, but it's definitely very, very good to see him and enjoy a little bit of afternoon beverage in the park, adult beverage in the park. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, Beacon was telling me that they were very much on the suburban wine kick today.
Well, okay, so it was actually vodka, but
oh, it wasn't even wine. Wasn't busting out the
No,
Franzia.
no, it was not a Franzia. It was no, it was cute because I had my little to-go bag. So I had like a little insulated lunch bag thing. So I had one mug that was the vodka, another mug that was the cranberry juice. Then I had another like a sports drink thing that was full of ice. And I just made my little mixture in the middle of the park. It was cute.
All right. Making do what it needs to
God.
be do. Greg, how are you?
It's COVID. I have not had a lot of fun things to do the past year, okay?
No, absolutely.
Greg, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a really good week. I've added
Greg,
a
wait,
couple
before
of
you talk,
additional.
let me make sure that your camera here works. Pow.
Okay. Oh my God.
You're there, Greg. Go ahead.
It's been a really good week. I've added some additional plants to my collection, which is really exciting. I've been introducing them to the I guess the ones that have been here, and the hierarchy of the plant family here. I sit at the top of it. So yeah, it's been a really, really cool and exciting week. I'm really looking forward to this week coming forward. So yeah.
And for those that don't know, that is Greg's book sleeve cover. He's preemptively taken photographs. Who's going to write your forward, Greg? Well, let's get right into it. This week has been it's been relatively busy. The House and the Senate were pushing the 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, and it passed yesterday through the Senate, and so it looks like it's going to happen. The stuff that's in the COVID relief bill includes a $1,400 stimulus relief check, additional unemployment benefits, tax credits for children, and then it's going to have funding for testing and for local governments to have pandemic relief. And so right now it's pushed through. It's taken a long time. It's finally happening, but it has changed dramatically from the initial promises that both the Biden administration had made during the campaign and also what the original bill that they proposed, because the original bill, of course, included the $15 minimum wage hike, which, of course, was one of the first things that got scrapped. And then Senator Joe Manchin had held out in voting for it before he was able to get a compromise from Democrats. Otherwise, he would have stalled the process and made it dead in the water for Democrats. So let's start there with the 1.9 trillion COVID relief package, and finally went through folks' thoughts, where they're at. Beacon, we can start with you.
Oh, great. It's it's a good thing that it happened, but it is just incredibly frustrating that this is only the third check that has gone out in a year, and that's just a check by itself, of course, not including all the unemployment benefits and support for small businesses and whatnot, but just like how little that this country is willing to settle for when it comes to supporting its citizens, and especially when you look comparing it to other countries around the world. And that is how little they're willing to settle for. And I know that the Republicans and the Democrats also on the back being like, yeah, we saved America, we did it. They should all bow down and thank us because we issued out a $1,400 check when it was supposed to be a $2,000 check. Like, it just is, it's amazing how little politicians have to do, and they continue to still get reelected. And like, there's not even consequences for it. So I'm a little bit bitter and a little bit upset that is just, that it's kind of come to this. But, all in all, is it a good thing? Yes. Am I glad that it actually passed? Yes. Do I wish there was more in it? Yes. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, the people that it is going to help, if it improves their lives at least a little bit, then that is better off than where they were yesterday. But tomorrow is going to be, potentially as bad, if not worse, than it was before. So I just want to know, I want politicians, specifically Democrats, to explain what they're going to be doing moving forward to actually, take care of their citizenry. And also, we really need to get rid of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Like, that needs to happen immediately.
Yeah, when they were still in debate, Greg and I were messaging, and we definitely were like, Joe Manchin just needs to like give up this like Democratic label that you're holding on to, like calling yourself a moderate Democrat. Just go ahead and take that R, represent the elephant, and like stop pretending. I don't know. He's like, y'all weren't here, but my whole messaging last week was fuck y'all, fuck Joe Manchin this week. He's definitely just he needs to go. All of those moderate, well, I mean, really, the entire Democratic caucus, because they're all moderates, need to go. Vega, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just like there's like maybe 5 that can stay.
Yeah.
In terms of representatives and senators combined, like maybe 5.
Yeah. And not only that, but I want to say that also during debate that, the Republicans made it as painful as possible for the Democrats to get the bill passed. And so in all of that on the floor debate and through all these votes that they had overnight, the Republicans really used it as an opportunity to like get on their soapbox to spread a bunch of more lies and misinformation that revolved around the 1.9 COVID relief. It's not what we wanted. It is something that's going to support people and it's going to give some relief. But again, and we talked about this last week, Vega and I did, this is like a really short-term Band-Aid that they're putting on it. They're not really thinking about a long-term plan for how they're actually going to support folks. And like, it's been a year of this and it's just a lot. Vega, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say that this is the long-term goal for the majority of the Democratic Party, including Biden. His support began and ended with the $2,000 checks, and the attempt at a $15 minimum wage. So basically, like, there was already no plan beyond that. So to not only compromise on the end goal for how you're treating this entire situation, I'm not the type of person that can lie to myself and say that crumbs are actually 5-course meals. Like, this is just abysmal. And the fact is that we're probably not going to be looking at any kind of relief anytime soon, especially since like the Republicans are going to use this as an opportunity to say, well, we already gave them relief, like in like within 3 times within less than a year. I think that's a little too much, and so that's going to become a whole argument in and of itself, to the point where we're going to be looking at sometime next year before any real kind of help is going to be coming out to the people. So it's just it's it keeps pointing out the flaws in the way that our system of government is run. Um, because if a single Democrat can, and I know it's not just Joe Manchin, but for a lot of the other things, Joe Manchin is the only thing that stands between this bill getting passed or a bill not getting passed. And for him to have that kind of a power when he's not the majority leader, he's not really like representative of any kind of like leadership within the Democratic Party. He's just a senator from West Virginia that has the power to halt things and water things down. Because at the end of the day, he's just a much more transparent Democrat. Because I struggle to say, I struggle to say for him to like leave and go to the Republican Party, just because it's this is what Democrats are at their core. Like, this is what they want. Everything else is just window dressing for marketing purposes. So I don't know. I I'm frustrated at the little effort that seems to be getting from the people that are supposed to represent us. And I'm even more frustrated because I know they're going to be patting themselves on the back as if this was some grand victory, which is not. So.
Yeah, we talked last week about how this is going to be one of the Biden administration's crowning achievements, and that, Jen Psaki, I'm not sure how to say her last name still. I should have learned from last week when I couldn't pronounce it. But she's going to get on that podium and she's going to spew like how this is what the administration promised. And then she like from the first time that she was up there on the podium, she started using the line that the Biden administration understood that the bill that ended up getting passed was not going to be what he said, because that's how bills work, and there's conversations and negotiation and debate. And so she, from the first time that she got up there on the podium, like, she started using that line. And so I'm sure that like she's going to go up there and she's going to say like, oh, it's not everything that we wanted, but it's the best that we do, and we're going to help the people, and we're keeping our campaign promises, and you are technically getting those $2,000 because you got $600 and you get $1,400 this time, and unemployment benefits.
And at the end of the day, you're still getting money because as opposed to no money. So be grateful for that.
Yeah. They're gonna use it. I think they're gonna get they're gonna plaster it everywhere how they're supporting the American economy and the American people. Greg, do you have any thoughts on the 1.9 trillion COVID relief package being passed?
No. I think I have similar thoughts as you guys. I think they're starting to compare Joe Manchin as the Democrats' John McCain, and I'm like, but that's still not really a true comparison, because at the end of at John McCain's true core, he was still a Republican. He still had Republican values. Like, the only crossing the aisle that I really remember is as it related to their last attempt to get rid of healthcare. But I see Joe Manchin consistently siding with like Republican values or archaic Senate rules or things like that. I think as of late, he's coming around to the idea of doing some changes with the filibuster and things like that. But if you're really not going to be a benefit of the party within the Senate with anything that is proposed, we should really start to have that discussion, and whether or not you should, if you're the person that we're supporting, like, because quite honestly, I would rather a Republican just take that seat from him, like, instead of him sitting up there pretending like he has some of our values, or that he is really supporting the party that really put him there. So, I'm looking at all of that and I'm really questioning where he sits with us. Well, not really us, but as where he sits with the party. And whether or not down the line he's going to be beneficial and benefit us as we look to the other things that we want to do. We'll be looking at, like, at some point they're going to have that conversation about the minimum wage. At some point they're going to have this conversation about voting and voting access. If we don't get rid of the filibuster, if we don't change it, and if you don't support us changing it or the party changing it, you're really a seat filler. Again, it is a problem that he can turn any of the legislation on his heels, and we just saw that the other night. We just saw it the other night, because he didn't support the change of extending unemployment. How he can hold up some of the priorities. A Democrat can hold up some of the priorities. So,
yeah, because ultimately, at the end of the day, he's just more open about the way that he's self-serving.
Yeah, and he was on Meet the Press today, and he was like, "Oh, I never would have held up the package and the relief. I just wanted to seek debate and compromise within my own party to basically put measures in place that would protect the American people and not allow us to overspend." Because he essentially, one of his biggest gripes was that we were overspending, that we did not need to do the 1.9 trillion. And at the end, he did get some sort of compromise on unemployment benefits. Fuck Joe Manchin, but really fuck the Democrats, because they've been in power. I mean, I think Greg is right. He's a seat filler. He didn't do us any good when we were the minority. He's not doing us any good now that they're the majority. He's not really doing much except stalling the process and giving voice to all these low key people that share all Republican values but call themselves Democrats. And so,
yeah, and I think that the Democrats actually like him because they're able to say, we're a big tent party. We have moderates, we have liberals and all that. They like being able to say that because they think that that is a good marketing strategy for them. Not I don't know if it's that they don't realize or they just don't care, but Republicans don't give a shit if you're a moderate Democrat. They're not going to vote for you. That's
absolutely,
they don't care.
I think
they
think it's sexy. The Democrats are like, oh yes, we have a moderate, we have moderates under our tent. And you're right, the Republicans really don't. They're like, no, you're moderate, you don't belong here. Basically, you don't belong here.
They don't even like moderate.
But that goes into a bigger conversation. Yeah, exactly. And that goes into a bigger conversation as to what does it mean to be a Democrat? Because you know what it means to be a Republican. But as far as Democrats, this attempt to try to have this broad range of ideas is really just hurting. If we're looking at what's benefiting and what's not helping the party, it's hurting the party in order for this veneer of I don't know, diversity, for lack of a better word. It's it literally feels like when colleges gather one person of each ethnicity and takes a picture to advertise their campus, but other than that, the college is not doing anything else to kind of actually benefit people that come from all ethnicities. The Democratic Party is just we have the woman, we have the moderate, we have the Asian, we have the black, we have the moderate black, we have and that's and then all those ideas are clashing with each other because they can't be reconciled with each other.
Yeah, and they keep on. They want to have those people in their party, but not necessarily give them full power. But also, their priorities are white supremacy in the same way that Republicans' priorities are. And they're like, wait, how can we, prioritize us, but still also keep all these other people around? And they don't know how to do both. And instead, they just continue to lose elections or barely win a presidential election when you're up against literally one of the least popular presidents in modern history. You barely won. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think also what's important to note is that right now the U.S. government has thrown $6 trillion at everything in COVID relief, but the bare minimum of those $6 trillion have actually gone directly to people, and so if you think about that, a lot of that went to the SBA, like the small business loans. A lot of that went to the bailouts they were giving. A lot of it went to the COVID relief. So, like here in Chicago, they gave them so much flexibility that Mayor Lightfoot ended up using, like, I don't remember the number exactly, but it was over 60% of the COVID relief. She used it.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
It was over $200-something million.
She used it to pay overtime to the CPD officers that were out during the civil unrest. And so that's where the $6 trillion that the U.S. government has given to during this pandemic, but the majority of it has gone not to the people who are actually in need of it. And so I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think that I'm glad that some people are going to get some sort of assistance, and I'm glad that some things are going to happen, but it's still a very short-sighted band-aid on like the long-term foreseeable future, and that takes us right into the next thing, which is COVID-19. A lot of governors.
Real quick, I just want to make one quick statement.
Go ahead.
That I feel like these politicians need to or we need to make it more evident that constituents will punch these politicians in the face if they don't get their act together. So
yeah,
like it's clear that they're not afraid of their constituents. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, if you look across the country right now at the amount of politicians that are like drowning in turmoil or scandal or nonsense, and they're still in power. They're still going every day. They're still getting paid. They're still taking advantage of having a security detail and a driver and a car and living in like all of that. So yeah, they're absolutely not afraid, and they're willing to like grit their teeth during the turmoil to keep moving forward. And I think that takes us into the next thing, which is COVID-19. A lot of governors across the country are starting to reopen. We started with Greg Abbott down in Texas, who was like 100% open everything, full capacity, no masks. We're good to go. And their COVID-19 cases are still in the thousands on a daily. And so let's move into COVID-19. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine did get approval from the FDA for emergency use. So that's starting to go out to communities. So now there's going to be all these vaccination sites that are open. Joe Biden is promising that there will, by May, be enough shots available for everybody that wants them. There are these conversations that are happening about the efficacy rate for each vaccine, because the Johnson & Johnson is the lowest of the efficacy rates. And just overall, like we talked last week about the chaos that's continued to ensue around signing up to get vaccinated, getting an actual appointment, and how all that rollout has just been a chaotic mess. So let's go to COVID-19 and like everything that's happening right now. Last week, we did pass the 500,000 lives lost to COVID-19. This week, we're about at 560,000 lives lost so far to COVID-19. And so it's very likely that in the next few months, we will reach the 600,000 mark of people that have died from COVID-19 in this country alone. And across the world, I forgot the number. I think it's like over 29 million or billion. I'm not sure what the number is of COVID-19 cases. So let's talk about COVID-19. Beacon, what are your thoughts?
Sorry. I don't know. It's been interesting, in particular in California, starting about the vaccine itself, that in the state of California, the guidelines for who is going to get vaccinated first and who is going to get vaccinated next, that has changed up a little bit. And the governor kind of shifted that around, which is a little bit frustrating. And obviously for me wanting to get a vaccine, it's very confusing in terms of when it would be that I would be eligible. In particular, working in construction, which construction has not had a day off since COVID started, and yet the construction industry as a whole, at least in California, is not in line for a vaccine early on. Construction workers, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm on a job site shoveling dirt, but working in that industry, interacting with people that are working on a daily basis, it's they were hailed as essential workers, and they were hailed as being important to literally keeping the roads running and keeping everything working, and yet, not really getting much love on the vaccine front. Um, in terms of just the general feeling of COVID, I'm sure it's been talked about in the past couple of weeks that I've missed, but there is definitely a general feeling of, oh, it's going to be fine now. And I am optimistic that with the amount of vaccines that should be available within the next few months, it will be a much different picture a few months from now. But we still have to get there. And getting there requires a certain amount of um, uh, caution and restraint. We can't go buck wild within the next few months, because within the next few months is critical. Like the levels that we're at, um, last time I checked, either in California or nationwide, it's the same as it was last summer. And that was last summer when people were, at least in California, we're going to the beaches, July 4th and all that shit. If we're at those numbers already before the summer hits, I'm concerned that those numbers will continue to increase. And part of the reason I'm worried about that is that I don't know if people fully realize that the COVID vaccine does not mean that you will not be able to get the COVID. It just means that it's not going to hit you as extreme as it would have in 2020, right? And I think that I'm worried that people are going to just be a little bit more lax and not be cautious enough. And we're just going to be in a difficult situation this year, as difficult, if not more difficult than we were last year, because you have cities, counties, and states that are entirely opening up with zero regard to the safety of its citizens. I'm looking at you, Texas and Mississippi, Louisiana, all those other states that are like, fuck yeah, just go ahead. I just think it's entirely irresponsible, and I think that the country in general is going to have to reap what it sows.
Yeah, and again, just like you said, what's really crazy is that the numbers have not changed, but governors are loosening restrictions. I think I just read California is going to open up Disneyland and allow Major League Baseball again. Texas went balls to the wall and they were like, everything is open everywhere. Do whatever you want. And they have this like saying that, oh, the responsibility is on the people. People will know to continue to be safe and to wear their mask. But we have seen time and time again that is not the case. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that although there is enough vaccination or they're claiming there will be enough vaccinations for every adult in the U.S. by May, they're not taking into account that there are different variants of COVID-19 that are out there that have shown resistance to the vaccination. And I think what you said, Beacon, is really important for people to note, is that getting vaccinated does not mean that you will not get COVID-19. It means that it will reduce how bad you get it, and it also will not stop transmission from person to person. There's not enough data to show that they've actually shown that you can give it to someone even after you have been vaccinated. So all of those things are important to note. I can't even imagine what it would be like to live in Texas right now, because I'm already a panicked, paranoid person here in Chicago, which has relatively good mandates and mask law or mask stuff that's out there, and people are doing well about being socially distant. But it seems like a nightmare that's waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's important to note for all of us that do not live in Texas, is that it's definitely easy to mock the governor and the different politicians in Texas, but like it's not like there are people that live in Texas that do not necessarily either have the means or desire to live somewhere else where the governors are a little bit more passionate and the politicians are a little bit more passionate. And so, like, we shouldn't be like, let's bomb Texas and walk away. Like it's actual people there that actually are trying to be safe and that are trying to be cautious and careful and not spread COVID around. Just because the politicians don't give a fuck doesn't mean that the people in the state don't either.
Yeah.
And so I you occasionally do see people um, mocking. I don't know if that's entirely the right word, but just wishing ill for all of the state of Texas, and that's just not that's not necessary, and that's not it's just unnecessarily cruel.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be completely fair, that even if people wanted to leave Texas right now, it's not like it's easy to just get up and move everything. Like leaving your network, your support, your job. The economy is tanking. Jobs are hard to come by. And even if you are able to get a job, like the cost of living in wherever you live in Texas is going to be completely different from wherever you move to. Vega, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I don't see at the rate we're going, I don't see us not reaching 1 million deaths before the end of the year, which is just absolutely unfortunate. And I actually just looked up the number because I was curious. Worldwide deaths is at 2.59 million. So we at this point are accounting for 1/5 of all COVID deaths in this one country alone. Um, and the fact that so many states are trying to open, arguably Florida started kind of like that chain reaction, but it isn't like like Beacon, you were alluding to, it's not just the southern states either. Like up here in New York, we're about to get to 50% capacity for restaurants, and bars are going to start opening up and gyms are open up at a certain it's just it's clear that like the main concern about COVID and its effects has been on focusing on what impact that has on the economy. So the primary thing that a lot of these governors are getting behind is, one, that people will decide for themselves, and two, that people just want to get back to work. But none of those things are true. It's more so that they've made the calculation that it would only benefit them. It would mostly benefit them than it would hurt. Well, no, sorry. They're looking at it from the way that it'll benefit them. For example, like with Abbott, him doing this makes him look like he is on the side of the people, like he's trying to make it so that people's lives can continue unencumbered. So of course people are gonna like that. That's the angle that he's going at. And then if the deaths continue to rise, he could always blame that on the Biden administration. So he only stands to gain from this. Most of the governors that are going to be deciding that within the next couple of weeks only stand to gain from this, and the deaths are just going to keep climbing, and there's going to be no more variants, and it's just going to go on and on and on and on, and it's just so frustrating and unfortunate that and I feel like I say this every week, like all these choices come at such a human cost that it's just like, how do you, I don't know, processing like the loss of life and all the other stuff that has happened throughout COVID, and the idea that it's going to continue to get worse. I don't know. It's really hard to not feel despair when thinking about that. Um, I I don't know how we would even move forward, because the only thing that I can think of is for there to be a federal mandate, for Joe Biden to be a little bit stricter on that, which we know he's not going to do. Um, I think that just on the basis of loss of human life, I think that the federal government has every right to step in and kind of like enforce these things to prevent that kind of loss of life. But I know that they're never going to go for that angle, and I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. Like, I know a lot of people are so desperate to want to get back to, normalcy, but there's just like the longer this goes on, the less normalcy, the less the less we're going back to a kind of life that is similar to the normalcy that we used to experience before. So
Yeah, I also think that people are not ready to either have the conversation or they're in denial about the conversation that life post COVID-19 is going to not look like life pre COVID-19. I think there are a lot
absolutely
of
not.
things that are going to be around for a long time. And I was having this conversation last week where I feel like the COVID-19 vaccine might be just like the flu shots where you have to get it. Or we don't know if there's going to be boosters that you're going to need. And so I think that, yeah, life post COVID-19 is going to change. I know that we have talked before on the show about like the things that have changed for ourselves during COVID-19. And for me, like, I know that I have accepted or like have without the societal pressures of having to go out and socialize and do things. I've discovered that I'm a lot more introverted than I thought I was, and I'm enjoying being home. And so because I'm worried about my safety and I have like this COVID panic that overcomes me a lot, I'm like, I'm okay staying home. I don't need to go to a bar. I don't need to go out to eat. I don't need to go and see a bunch of people in a room that are not wearing masks or that are going to be like intermittently wearing them. That like I don't want to run into an asymptomatic carrier. And like most importantly, and I know that this is really grim, but like I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. I feel like I've got a lot left in me, a lot more things that I want to do and that I want to experience, and I want to experience them freely. And so, yeah, it's rough. COVID-19 is rough. We've talked about it so much on this, on the weekly digest and everything that's going on, but I just feel like the government's doing an inadequate job of having a national response on how to manage, how to do testing, and this vaccination distribution rollout. All of this has just been a whole chaotic mess. Greg, what are your thoughts on
At that point,
COVID-19? Oh, go ahead, Vega.
sorry, real quick, I just like to that point. At what point do we go from the government being negligent to the government actively pursuing the loss of life? I mean, we know that they already do that, but at some point, someone is going to have to step in, or or people are going to have to organize to step in, because like it does feel more so than ever before, that just kind of like having a lack of care of human life, and we're getting to that point where it's becoming an active, I don't know, serial killing, like that is just going unchallenged because it's the government. Who's gonna say that the government are serial killers at this point? And I don't want to. I know it sounds alarmist, but it's just like there's got to be a
Well, we
limit.
already know that Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, so.
I mean, I think that's a valid point, Vega. I think that the government has had an inadequate response, but that they have also chosen money over people's lives, and that's evident with like how they decided to classify all these people as essential workers and like force them to go to work during a pandemic, and they gave them like a temporary $2 raise, and did that all those small businesses that took the loans out in order to keep people on the payrolls that then didn't end up giving the money to the people that they were supposed to be keeping on the payrolls. And so I think that the government has many times chosen money or the economy, or they keep, what I really hate is they weaponize like mental health, and they're saying that suicide rates are up and depression is up, and that the isolation of mask mandates, social distancing, and closing stuff down is doing all that. But yeah, I think it's a fair point that the government has not only not done an adequate job of supporting the people, but that they have also intentionally at times like the lives of people were like an afterthought.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily even a active having to choose, money over people, or actively um, having, not taking care of the citizens. I just think that the government is working as it was designed to do, and that
Yeah.
America is operating as it was designed to do, which is not for the benefit of its citizens, which is only for the benefit of
Hmm.
profit. And I
Hmm.
think that it's working as designed. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So I have a couple of thoughts on it. I think one of them is that we're not having this conversation about this really being a class issue, and that a lot of the people celebrating the opening aren't really taking any consideration into account the people, the working class people, the people who work in the service industry that are going to now have to go into these restaurants and work and serve people who likely haven't been vaccinated, who aren't going to be wearing a mask, and potentially putting themselves at greater risk. Whereas the people who want to get out and who have all of they have all of this money that they've been holding throughout COVID, and they're ready to spend it, but at what cost? And so, I think we're taking these very measured steps here in Illinois. So I think we've moved up to like a 50% occupancy in restaurants. And I think some of that is, in fact, to help some of the businesses survive, but to also get back to whatever our new normal is. Because I think, to Freddie's point, there will never be a 2019 normal. There will never be that. We'll always be living in this after. I personally will always be living in this after effect of COVID, very similar to how we are living in this flu type of thing. Whereas, because I work in healthcare, I have to get the flu shot every year unless I have like religious and all of the other exemptions. Um, I believe we'll be at that. We might likely be at that point with COVID. And so we'll also still be living with these variants. And so we're likely to be in these masks for a very long time. And so it's really unfortunate that the Texas governor is rushing to open. It would be really unfortunate if they get multiple variants in the state of Texas, and Texas becomes the new hotspot. And it's a very likely thing that will very likely could happen. Especially when you take off
They already have new variants.
yes, at the point that you take off all of the safeguards. I think here in Chicago, we just I forgot which variant they just discovered here over the last few days that that none of the vaccines looks like they work with, but it's also the most contagious variant. And so again, I think my godmother and I had this conversation about most of the people that we know, like her parents have been vaccinated, she's been vaccinated, and she's over in Virginia. She really she has not been able to visit. She really wants to visit. But she also understands that even being vaccinated is really just this extra layer of protection, that not a lot of people are thinking about it in that way. And I think it's going to take this huge public education campaign to be like, look, the vaccine is this extra layer. It is not going to protect, is not going to completely protect us. It is going to allow us to do a little bit more than what we were doing over the last year. I personally am looking forward to that. Being shut down, being not able to connect with people in the ways that we used to has affected my mental health. And I'll just be transparent about that. Just being in this isolated space. And I feel like it's because of this just extended period of time, because I was already in it in 2019. And so 2020, I was really looking forward to getting out, and then COVID hit. And so I'm really looking forward to that day where we can get out and about, socially distance. I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with open air things. But that's also because I know what I know, And I also know how to continue to protect myself as best as I can, and to also extract myself from situations that I think are extremely high risk situations, or not put myself in those situations. But I think a lot of people aren't going to look at that. A lot of people are going to be like, well, I'm vaccinated, you're vaccinated, let's get out in these streets. Well, it's like, no, let's not get out in these streets.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm glad that we are expanding the access to vaccines. Personally, at the clinic that I work at, we are seeing this past week we tripled the number of appointment slots, and so now we're up to about 180 people, and we don't even have the capacity in our building to really support that, and we found ways to just be able to support that, and still serve the people that we were designed to serve. And so I'm hoping for the best. I'm really looking forward to this, whatever this new normal is for us. Freddie will tell you, I'm always trying to let's barbecue outside. Do something.
Greg is definitely always trying to get me to do outdoor things, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
I'm like, let's just meet in a parking lot and sit separate and have a beer together. Like, you sit on that side, I'll sit on this side.
Beacon, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just going to suggest if you both were in two different cars in an open parking lot 50 feet away and you talk to each other over Bluetooth. That's outside.
I mean,
something.
Greg and I have seen each other. I don't want him to portray that I have denied Greg seen me. He has seen me. I got him Girl Scout cookies.
You were my Girl Scout Cookie Connect.
That's right. I was the Girl Scout Cookie Connect for Greg this year. It just continues to be dangerous, and I think that, just like Greg mentioned, that there are these variants out there that they don't have either data for it that shows that the vaccines are gonna protect you from those variants, or that they don't. And he's right. I sent him the article where this variant was found here in Chicago, and it's shown it's highly contagious and that the vaccines aren't going to do shit for you. So it's just crazy. You have to continue to do the best that you can to keep your mask on when you're out in public, stay 6 feet apart, stay home as much as possible, and to be as safe as you possibly can. That's all that you can ask of people. I wish that you can tell everyone wear a mask 6 feet apart. I wish that this had gone differently, but it hasn't. So here we are, and we have to do the best that we can with what we got. I guess that's really it. And just to bring some lightness to it, last week, Vega did coin the term that the vaccine is like your COVID-19 condom. And so it's not 100% effective.
I have forgotten about that.
It's not 100% effective, but it protects you as best as it can. So again, folks, continue to stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, stay home as much as possible, and be as safe as possible. Make the decisions that you can as safe as possible for yourself. Let's move into sexual assault and politics, and how the reason why this came up for me is because of Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, is getting drowned. He's drowning in sexual assault allegations and other stuff that's politically going on. But I wanted to point out or talk about how this happens a lot in politics, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. People that are in politics continue to remain in power and continue to have access to the resources, the benefits, and the money and the capital that comes from being in those political power or political positions of power, while still being completely enthralled in sexual assault allegations and cases and shit like that. And I also want to talk about how there's a couple of different things that I feel is happening. There's this whole when it's a member of our party, so politics come into play. When it's a member of our party, let's treat it differently than it was than if it was a member of the other party. And so I think that is in existence. And I think the other thing that's in existence is that Republicans seem to come out much more unscathed from these things than Democrats do. So like one of the things that immediately was like thrown out there for like Marjorie Taylor Greene when she was saying all those crazy things was that Al Franken was forced to resign for like something a picture like and allegations that came up, and they were like, get out. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was like inciting insurrection and saying crazy things about like murdering like colleagues in the House, got a slap on the wrist, was removed from committees, but still holding this position of power and isn't going anywhere. As a matter of fact, the Republicans are touting her, and I'm sure they're going to dump a bunch of money into her campaign so that she can continue to stay, because she's going to like bring in that far right. So I wanted to talk about like everything, like politicians from both sides of the aisle have been enthralled in like all sorts of allegations that have credibility. Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. He denied everything, and then it blew up in his face, and there he was, getting impeached for having an affair. And there's all sorts of all over the place, very publicly made scandals, and then there are the ones that we never even see, the ones that never make the light of day, but that happen behind the scenes, that have non-disclosure agreements that got signed so that no one ever has to talk about it. It's a hot ass mess, but there seems to be all sorts of double standards. And then the other thing I forgot to mention is that there's definitely treatment differently when it is a man or like a perceived man versus a perceived woman and a politicians, and how that all plays out. So I wanted to jump into it and talk about it and see what all your thoughts are. Beacon, we can start with you.
There is the aspect of if Democrats say they are the party of respecting women, and not just respecting women, but like not tolerating sexual assault, sexual abuse, and whatnot, then you kind of have to stand by it. And so I'm glad that in the past, Al Franken was received consequences for his actions. I would hope that Cuomo receives consequences for his actions. I think that it can be fine to be upset and annoyed that Republicans have, as you said, come out unscathed. But I think that the difference is that they make that a part of their brand, in terms of, them being a party. Like if you have a presidential candidate that, was saying grab them by the pussy and you can do whatever you want as long as you're, a celebrity or whatever, like, all the way this should have played out is that all allusions to Republicans being the party of the moral majority and having the moral high ground, that should all have gone away with Trump. Somehow that hasn't gone away, and they're still going to run on, being a part of, good Christian morals and all that. But, the reality is that that just is part of their brand. Part of their brand is being okay with sexual assault because, they just don't care about women. Part of their brand is being okay with insurrection against an incoming government. Part of their brand is okay with being transphobic, homophobic, racist, all these different things. Like that is a part of who they are as a party. And so, of course, they're going to protect their own when their own is revealed to have done those things. Democrats shouldn't, I don't think that they should back down from their quote unquote standards in terms of not tolerating that shit. But what I also would like them to do is not pretend that they can still compromise with the other party. Like we see all the different things that the Republicans do and get away with, and Democrats continue to fall over themselves, trip over themselves on their way to, sucking up to Republicans and trying to compromise with the Republicans. And you have Democrats like Biden, especially saying, they believe in having a strong Republican Party. Fuck that shit. Like, I think that Democrats should absolutely, there should be consequences for when they fuck up in all these different ways. But I do think that they need to take some stand in terms of, what they believe, from a moral standpoint, in terms of what they tolerate in their own party, and then also what they deal with in the other party, or how they interact with the other party. But I don't know. I don't think that any of us are going to be like, yay, pro sexual assault. I think that all of us are against it, and as we should be. But I think that what matters is not pretending like, um, not tolerating it on either side. And I think that Democrats don't tolerate it within their own uh, party, but then they tolerate it with the other party. And I would just like them to be able to apply the same standard for themselves when they deal with the other party.
Yeah. And I think that it's no surprise, like, there's always been double standards for everything and on so many layers. And I also think that, in the past, this was like a lot more accepted and subversive. And so I'm sure that Anita Hill during the Supreme Court justice, like, nominations and the hearings and how all that played out, and in the end, like, Anita was like villainized for coming forward. I think that it's played out in really, really intense ways, and Joe Biden was a part of that. Joe Biden was like one of the persons that got the information. So I think that it's interesting that, well, it's not interesting. I think it's fucked up that it has to play out in this way, that a lot of times the person that is the victim often gets like overshadowed by whoever it is that like was actually committing the assault or the harassment or whatever it was. And I think that a lot of times they end up like, getting there and staying in the power. Same thing with Kavanaugh during his whole confirmation process. And, here he is. He's a Supreme Court justice. Nothing changed, except that someone had to like go and give like some really traumatic details of their life and had to upend their life because a bunch of people started being like crazy and harassing and threatening. And so a lot of times it feels like justice is never served for the people that are actually the victims of the assault. And right now, Cuomo being the person that's like in the hot seat right now, whoever was handling all of this for him was either advising him poorly or he didn't give a fuck. And he was just like, I'm going to like victim shame and like push my agenda and say that I've been the greatest governor in the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I've done all this stuff to keep New Yorkers safe and all the shit that he's thrown out there. But I think that in the end, like, he's still the fucking governor of New York, and he still has a driver and a detail and is getting paid tons of money to, go out there and say, okay, I didn't do anything, and then be like, well, if I did anything, I'm sorry if anyone felt offended, to saying, I now see that I acted inappropriately, but I didn't intend to do anything. And so like his story has changed dramatically from like the initial allegation to where he is now. And so I'm just like last week, it was like, fuck all y'all. It was like, fuck Andrew Cuomo and like the fucking high horse that he's riding in on. Vega, this is home for you, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So there was a whole bunch of things brought up in this, but I guess I'll start with Cuomo. He's full of himself. I mean, the idea that he, kept New Yorkers safe is laughable, because at every single turn he was trying to open up the city way before it was even allowed. It should have been. And has been putting, essential workers and kids like at risk at every single opportunity that he could. So it's I mean, but he's always had a big ego. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that this has come up, because I mean, we know that when it comes to sexual assault, it's about power. So people in power are going to be more likely to commit sexual assault because that power is what they crave. Um, so, and then as for like how the different parties react to it, it's because both of them make a calculation. Like, they're both trying to weaponize the morality of the situation. Whereas with Republicans, because they're, whatchamacallit, because they position themselves as the conservative, the true American values about how everyone's gender roles work and all this other stuff, and therefore the man has to be more aggressive in pursuing the woman, and the woman has to be coy, and that could be misinterpreted, and blah 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 blah. All of that works in their favor, um, because a lot of the people that they have indoctrinated to follow their way of thinking believe, or rather, are more inclined to disregard the words of the victim. Um, and so it works in their favor. So they don't have to fight against it. They don't have to fight against the allegations. Um, they don't have to really do much of anything because that is what their constituency believes they want. Because that's what they've been told is supposed to be the way that we're supposed to act, because that's how society's supposed to be, or whatever. And then as far as the Democrats, the way that they're weaponizing the morality of the situation is that they want to come out as if they're the most good kind of people. And I think what that does is it puts Democrats into this strange position where, how do I say this? They can take the allegation however they want. If it's somebody that supports the core of the Democratic ideology, they're going to do whatever they can in order to try to, save the politician out of this pocket, like we're seeing with Cuomo right now. They don't, it would look bad on the Democratic Party for Cuomo, for Cuomo not to find some way to rehabilitate himself out of this, and so they're going to be supporting his efforts in that. Whereas, like, say for example, hope it doesn't happen, but like, say for example, allegations come out about Bernie Sanders, they're going to throw him under the bus. They're not going to be giving the same kind of support to him, because again, the way that the Democratic Party is run isn't about actual accountability. It's about what is going to sustain what we need this way to run. So it's none of it's taken into consideration the the health of the victim. None of this is taken into consideration that, like, we should be holding all of these people accountable regardless of political affiliation. That we shouldn't be in a situation where leaders of a country can push the idea that there is exceptions to sexual assault. Like, that should not be a thing, and yet here we are. Because again, undermining that is undermining the very power that they stand on. So it's not something that you're going to see a lot of Republicans try to fight against, and Democrats are not going to try to fight against it either, because it's like, well, you never know who else is in our party. It's very gives me very much, for those of us in families of color, and we have, like, it's a very common story, unfortunately, of where you have that one uncle or that one family member that still gets invited to the parties, but not to get close to, because there's rumors about how he can get with, like, little kids and stuff. So it's very much, it gives me very much that, like, no one in that family is holding this person accountable, still inviting them to the dinner table, but, like, also trying to kind of, like, stand as if you're doing something for the good, like, for the good of everybody that's there, when in reality what you should be doing is making sure that there is no seat for that person, that they shouldn't even be there. So it's very much, it's just, at the end of the day, it just goes back to, like, my biggest gripe with a lot of the way that these things are run, that there is no accountability. With Cuomo, the accountability, well, the Democrats will make sure that the accountability, no matter what form it takes, still helps him at the end of the day. So if it gets too big that he needs to be removed from office, they'll do it, but they'll make sure he lands in a cushy, like that he has a soft landing, you know? At no point are they doing anything to rectify the situations with the people that he victimized. Um, it's just sickening. It's just sickening.
Yeah, and I think the other thing for Cuomo too is that he's part of this like political dynasty in New York, right? His dad was a governor of New
Right.
York. His brother is like a CNN political commentator and anchor. And so I think that he's also being treated differently because of the political dynasty that the Cuomo family holds in New York, but also the amount of capital that they have in New York. But it's definitely fucked up. Greg, do you have any thoughts? Greg, you're muted if you're talking right now. We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I have to remember that I put because of the background noise that's always present, apparently. I always put myself on mute after I finish talking. I do agree. I think that we do have a tendency to treat the Democrats who are accused of things with kid gloves almost all the time. Like it's always this, I'm going to wait and see before I tweet anything, or, this is a sensitive topic. Whereas if it was a Republican, they would have immediately jumped on it. And I think that they should have that same energy when it's one of theirs that's being accused. If our position is that we believe the accusers and we listen to the accusers, that has to be the policy all the time. It can't be the policy when it's a Donald Trump. It has to be that position all the time. It should not. I think it's beyond me why they're not calling for his resignation at this point. Like I think there's 5 accusers, 4 or 5 at this point. Like I think everyone should be having that conversation with him, with his aides, that this should not go on through the weekend. Like the weekend news should be, you have resigned. There should be. I mean, that doesn't put this to bed. But like that's how we would react if it was anyone else. If it was anyone else, we would be calling for them to resign. Like the weekend would have been their opportunity. Monday there will be a press conference. Like that's just it. But again, we absolutely treat it differently. I think Republicans treat theirs differently also. But again, they don't really care. And I think that we see that a lot with the positions that they take, in which they don't really care, and they are really open about it. They're really they're cool with it. Like, hey, we don't believe it happened. We don't trust that woman, that floozy. She threw herself. Like they stake out that position, and their party supports it. But if the Democratic Party is going to be the party that calls it out, is going to be the party of the Me Too movement, is going to be that party. It has to always be that party. And if it's someone in your family or outside of your family, if you are going to, if this is your heel, this is always your heel. So it's not surprising to see how they're responding to Cuomo. It is disheartening to see that because they continue.
Yeah, and so more to what Vega was saying and what you're saying is, I agree that like the conversation should be like, okay, how are you going to submit your resignation letter and what's your resignation statement going to be? But instead, the conversations that are happening is let's let him finish his term, but he can't run again. And so like that doesn't seem like it's
you know,
justice at all. It's just like it's like a really light slap on the wrist for like a really serious thing. Vega, you were gonna say
yeah, it's
something?
just, no, just I was just agreeing with it all, and just I don't know. Like it goes to show you that they don't actually care about these issues. They care about them so that they can see that they care, so that they can cater to the people that care about these issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You would have known. You would have known that your conduct was not appropriate had you went to the training for this. You would have known.
And politicians are the type of people that not go to the training.
Beacon, you were gonna say something?
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that, and I apologize if this point has been made already, but I think that if they actually cared, if Democrats or Republicans, but especially Democrats in this case, actually did care about sexual assault uh, and issues relating to women and other marginalized communities, the way to show that would be in the policies that they promote and actually try to pass, which that is not necessarily always the case. And there is a lot of it that is just for show, but it's I just all the different issues that we talk about that we're supportive of, whether it's abolishing the police, ICE, or a higher minimum wage, or universal health care, or anything like that. Those are the things that you actually push for if you do care about uplifting marginalized communities and improving their quality of life. If you're not actually going for those types of things, then it just tells me that you don't actually care, and it's just maintaining the status quo while directing attention away from you when you do bad things, which in this case, the you in this case is, of course, Cuomo.
Yep.
So,
Right.
Yep. Well, I guess the theme from last week continues. Fuck all y'all. Not y'all. But last week I talked to Vega and I told them that I was gonna start ending Pogo Pock on lighter notes because a lot of times what we talk about is really heavy. Last week we talked about perseverance, although Vega was like, "Oh, it's really compressed. I can't see your video," and then we talked about how I've been trying to get people to see the perseverance video and think it's as cool as I do, but a lot of people are just like, eh. But then we also talked about how in China, the McDonald's in China, you can get a Spam with crushed Oreo burger. And so that's what we talked about last week. We were going to force everyone to eat one this week by making them at home. Vega was not about that life.
Nope.
And I quickly decided that I was not about that life either. But I wanted to start ending Pogo Pock on lighter notes. And so I don't know if this is actually a lighter note, but it's a creepy note. And so let me pull this up before I like.
Wait, hold on. Question. So
Yeah.
is this Spam with crushed Oreo?
Yeah, so the in the bun there's a slice of ham that's been grilled, and then there's like crushed Oreos on top, and then there's all the other like sides that go into a burger, so like mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato, and that is hum what is you can get at a McDonald's in China.
Okay, I am not opposed to trying that.
Okay, well then we have it there, Greg. Greg and I may.
I look forward to your reports, Greg.
I mean, I think that a lot of people had a list of things to do after COVID when they start seeing their friends again. I don't know how many people have eat a Spam burger with crushed Oreos on the top of their list, but have fun. enjoy yourselves.
It definitely sounds disgusting. It does it the way they marketed the picture. I tried to put it up last week, but it was a whole fiasco. Yeah, the way they marketed it looks appealing, but I don't know. And I know that like in different countries, spam is like very popular, but I'm still a little skeptical. But this week is it's a little creepy. I don't know if it's let me make sure this works. Okay. So there's this new thing on TikTok. It's an app.
God.
See, Vega immediately knows what it is. It takes pictures, older pictures of like family members that you may have had that passed away, and it
TikTok
animates
just
them.
discovered an
It
app,
turns them
but,
to
like, everyone
life.
right
And oh wait, let me
feels.
mute this. It turns them to life, and so it's really, really creepy. Let me fast forward. I don't want to see the guy talking. It animates these older pictures of folks that maybe have passed away, and it's really weird. It's really bizarre, but it's the newest thing, and everyone on TikTok is taking pictures of the relatives that have passed away, and they're animating them and bringing them to life. And so maybe this wasn't the lighter note that I wanted to end on.
Okay,
Which part of it is light to you? Which part of it did you see on that video? You're like, this is the lighter part. Which part was that?
I really did think that this would be the lighter part. Oh, well,
here's my thing about it. Here's like if I can
Ooh, I love the background.
right. So my thing
Let's
about
talk about this. This is the light note. We'll talk about the background.
Go ahead, Vega.
No, what I was gonna say was that like it gives me very much the futuristic Star Trek vibes of the Portraits of the Future. So in that regard, I think it's cool. I think I would be more okay with it if it's not an AI produced kind of video. Like if it was like you were able to take some sort of 3D video that you can play on loop as like a picture frame, and your family member had gone in to record it, I'd be more okay with that. But taking pictures and animating it from there, it just, at least for me, I'd always know that that's fake, and it just be, I don't know if insulting is the right word, but it just doesn't, like, it's cool to me, but it doesn't do anything for me in regards to the memory of the person, if that makes sense.
It's gotten mixed reviews on TikTok. People are like weirded out and creeped out by it, like many of you were as you saw it.
I don't want it.
And then there are people that are getting some sort of like emotional closure or closeness to relatives or loved ones that have passed away. But I have to say I don't want to take a picture of someone that's passed away and watch it come to life via an app. It seems very weird, peculiar, and creepy.
It's yeah, to Vegas' point, you know that it's not real, you know that it's fake, and you know that it's like this, it's so altered, and so I don't like. I just personally, for me, if people find it comforting, that's great. I just like. I don't think it's, for me, comforting to see someone that's passed, but not actually living, and it's just this weird version of it. So it almost seems as if you're putting them in purgatory rather than just letting them be.
Yeah. It's a weird experience to be scrolling through TikTok where there's like people that are posting all sorts of funny videos, thirst traps, and then there are people that are like split screening their reaction to seeing this and like breaking down and crying. It's a very, very, very bizarre experience. I don't know. It
just feels exploitative.
I can guarantee every one of you here that if either any one of you ever passes away before me, I won't be taking your picture and recreating it through this app.
If I do a full body motion capture video and send it to y'all, then I'm fine with that. But like,
Yeah.
It's strange. That's the other thing, and it feels exploitative because to have the videos of you reacting to it, to me, like I understand that it can be healing for a lot of folks, but to me it just feels like you're doing it to evoke an emotional reaction out of yourself in order to get more
Yes.
views.
Yeah.
So that's the
Right.
part. Like I understand that there are completely different ways of like, either mourning or celebrating a person that has passed. I've definitely seen, like parties being thrown out of celebration and stuff like that. That like
Yeah.
may be strange for some folks, but that's just how different cultures react to death. If this is a, if the exploitative part of it were to be removed, maybe, but it feels so manufactured, I guess.
Yeah. Greg,
I am not comfortable with I'm not comfortable with them doing that with Prince's likeness. I'm really not comfortable with them doing that with Whitney Houston's likeness. I would be
Ooh, no.
No.
yeah.
they did that
No.
with like if someone like if my one of my siblings called me over and was like, "Oh, look what we did for you." I,
Oh my god.
This is coming from the guy that probably wants to take me into the casket with him. He's like, don't recreate my picture.
I mean, that's different though. But no, but seriously, I would be like, what? Like, no, I personally am just not really comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like, what are they saying? Like, so you've animated them. Like, is it like, oh, I miss you?
I mean, I encourage all of you to go and look at the videos on TikTok. They run the gamut from being disturbing to sad, but like, it's like them and they, it's like a reaction video. It comes up and it's a split screen and they're there and then they're just like, and they start crying, and then they're like talking about how much they miss them. It's a very, very bizarre experience.
They do these reaction videos, but they're for marketing purposes. So an artist will take, like, for example, if someone's passed, they'll do these oil paintings with that person, like in a group picture or something like that.
Yes.
Like, and so they do those reaction videos, and I'm comfortable with those. I get that. Like, they're revealing this amazing picture to this person, and this person is overwhelmed with emotions and all this other stuff. Like, the picture is fine. Please do not open up your laptop and have this person to me.
What I will say about those videos too, those videos where they do the reaction to the paintings though can also be a little bit strange because there are times where the person gets painted into a situation that they did not live through. So like somebody's wedding group picture and they paint the person that passed away before the wedding into it. And then you're getting this reaction video and like, I don't know. It seems like a very intimate and personal moment that I did not want to see as I scrolled through TikTok.
Well, I really don't think that people understand how to have personal and intimate moments by themselves without putting it up on social media.
Jeez.
Without validation, actually.
We should talk about that next week.
See, and then that's my other thing too, is just like, if you're really searching for some sort of closure, like there are a lot of other like there are a lot of spiritualities out there that therapy too. There are a lot of spiritualities out there that'll like help you find closure in different ways, or help you experience your loved ones in different ways. I mean, and those are more authentic. Well, sorry, no, let me not say that. Let me.
They're whatever those persons needs for those moments.
Yes, they're less exploitative. Yeah. There you go. It's more respectful of the dead than it is validating your need to be seen mourning.
Yeah. Well, again, I guarantee that I will never, ever bring any one of you to life via picture after you're gone if I outlive you all.
I have a good friend of mine a good friend of mine that she always says that if I die, I want you to burn my ashes and smoke me, like mix me up with weed and smoke me.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
just like, you know what? That kind of sounds
I'm
kind of
not
cool.
ready for that. Wait, whoa. Okay, this is taking quite a turn.
You asked for this, Freddie. You took us down this path.
This was on
You have to live with that decision.
I can now also guarantee all of you that I will not smoke all of you in a joint if you all die. Oh my God. All right. Well, there's your lighter note and Pogo Podcast, everybody.
I made it through this whole podcast without only saying one weird thing.
We're going to talk about this offline, Vega. Oh my God. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your labor and for being here. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend. We'll be here next weekend again. Good night, everybody.
Good night.